You know, when you look back at history, it so often turns on a single crucial point on the map. It's this idea that repeats itself over and over. If you control the right piece of land, you can control the future. And today, we're going to dive into what might be the single most important piece of land you're probably not thinking about.
But here's the thing. Today, that pivot point isn't some sunny harbor or a narrow shipping canal. Nope. It's a massive frozen island at the very top of the world, Greenland. And what happens there in just the next few years could very well set the stage for the next 100 years of global competition.
Because to really get why Greenland is so insanely important, you can't just look at it on the surface. We have to peel back 4 different layers of value, each one stacked right on top of the other, to see the whole picture.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with why it's become this geopolitical hotspot. Then we'll unpack that 4-dimensional map I mentioned. We'll dig into old threats and new tech, the treasure hiding under the ice, and then, crucially, we'll talk about the people at the center of it all. Finally, we'll look at the big choice facing the world's superpowers.
Okay, let's start with the big mystery here. For centuries, Greenland was mostly an afterthought in global politics. But all of a sudden, that has completely changed, and I mean dramatically.
The interest is, well, it's intense. You might remember when a US president made headlines offering to buy it, but trust me, this goes so much deeper than one politician. Russia and China have been making very quiet, very strategic moves up there for years. So what on earth do they all see that maybe the rest of us have been missing?
Well, the answer brings us right back to this idea of a 4-dimensional map. Once you start stacking these 4 layers of strategic value, one on top of the other, Greenland just transforms from this remote, icy wilderness into one of the most critical pieces of real estate on the entire planet.
And these are our 4 dimensions. First, it's military geography, which is timeless. Second, the mind-boggling amount of natural resources locked under the ice. Third, the invisible digital highways that run right past its shores. And fourth, the brand new trade routes that climate change is literally carving into the Arctic Ocean.
So let's peel back that first layer. It's a fascinating mix of a Cold War threat that, believe it or not, never really went away, and a totally modern vulnerability that most people don't even know exists.
Okay, this is where you have to throw out your flat wall map, because it lies to you. On a flat map, Greenland looks kind of off to the side, right? But if you look at an actual globe, you see the truth. It is sitting directly on the shortest, fastest flight path for a missile traveling between Russia and the United States. That geography is permanent. It's not changing.
And that is exactly why the U.S. has run Patuxent Space Base there since 1951. It's home to the giant radars that give the U.S. a heads up if anything is coming over the pole. It's a cornerstone of America's nuclear defense. But here's the kicker. As Greenland pushes for full independence from Denmark, the future of that base suddenly becomes uncertain. And for military planners in Washington, that's a risk they can't afford.
And hey, the threat isn't just coming from the sky. Down in the freezing water, something just as important is at stake. A staggering 95% of all international internet data. We're talking financial trades, military secrets, your emails, everything. It all travels through these massive undersea fiber optic cables. And the main cables connecting North America and Europe run right through the waters around Greenland. That makes the island a vital spot for protecting the nervous system of our modern world. All right, so let's shift gears and peel back the next layer. We're moving from defense to the raw materials and the super highways of the future. We're talking about the immense wealth that is currently locked under Greenland's ice.
First up, we've got to talk about something called rare earth elements. Now, the name is a little misleading. They're not always geologically rare, but they are incredibly difficult and messy to mine and process. And here's the thing. Without them, our entire modern world pretty much grinds to a halt.
Seriously, this stuff is like the secret sauce in, well, everything. The super strong magnets you need for electric vehicle motors and wind turbines? Yep. The advanced electronics and military radar systems? You bet. And that smartphone in your pocket? It wouldn't work without them. And this chart, wow, this really lays out the problem, doesn't it? The West can dig some of this stuff out of the ground, sure, but the really critical step, turning the raw ore into usable metals, is almost completely controlled by one country, China. We're talking over 80% of the market. It's a strategic chokehold on the world's tech supply chain. And guess what? Greenland is sitting on what could be one of the largest untapped deposits of these elements on the planet.
But it's not just about rare earths. We're also talking about energy, a lot of energy. Estimates suggest Greenland has around 31 billion barrels of oil offshore. Now, getting to it is incredibly hard and environmentally risky, no doubt. But in a world where energy security is national security, having access to a reserve that big is a huge strategic prize.
And then there's the one that's literally changing the shape of the planet. As that Arctic ice melts, new, shorter shipping routes are opening up, routes that could slash travel time between Asia, Europe, and North America. And Greenland is sitting there like a gatekeeper to these new ocean highways. The country with influence here gets to help write the new rules of global trade.
So, we've talked about missiles, we've talked about minerals, we've talked about these massive global forces, but now we have to talk about the most important piece of this entire puzzle. The piece that is so often forgotten. The people who actually live there.
57,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's a population smaller than many suburbs, and they are caught right in the middle of a strategic game between global superpowers. The difference in scale between the population and the stakes, it's just astounding.
And make no mistake, these are not passive bystanders in their own story. The people of Greenland, the vast majority of whom are Inuit, have an incredibly deep connection to their land and a powerful, growing movement for full independence. They have watched outsiders make decisions about their home for centuries, and now they are demanding to have a say in their own future.
Okay, so this is where it all comes together. When you stack up all four of those dimensions, the military position, the resources, the digital connections, and the people, you land at the ultimate strategic question facing the US and its competitors.
You can see it right here. Each of the big players has a crystal clear goal. The US needs to secure its military base and keep rivals out. Russia wants to push back against American dominance in what it sees as its own backyard. And China sees a golden opportunity to gain access to resources and trade routes with its Polar Silk Road plan. 3 different visions are all converging on this one island.
And for the United States especially, this all boils down to a really stark choice. Path A is the coercive approach, treating Greenland like a problem you have to manage or acquire. That would be a disaster. It would create enormous resentment and basically hand a huge propaganda victory to Russia and China. Path B is a real partnership, one that actually respects Greenland's sovereignty, listens to its people, and offers a future of shared economic benefit.
So the pieces are moving on the board. The ice is melting, the wealth underneath is being exposed, and the world's superpowers are all leaning in. The chessboard is set. The real question is whether the 57,000 people at the heart of this whole thing will be treated as partners in shaping their own future, or just as pawns in a game they never even asked to join. The answer to that question is going to help define this next era of global power.